Hello and welcome to the evening edition of the news on Canal International. Thanks for the privilege of your company. First up, the headlines. Suspects arrested and caches of weapons seized in Boya and the southwest region, where the security crisis continues morphing into an unprecedented armed conflict. And how do women above 45 cope with what medics term hot flashes, a condition in which affected women are occasionally gripped by waves of intense heat? And beyond Cameroon, we head off to Senegal, where fishermen at Saint Louis on the shores of the Atlantic are frowning at government plans to install a gas terminal. Thanks once again for keeping us company as we start out in Boya, the southwest region of Cameroon, where 14 suspects have been nabbed, caches of weapons dismantled, and considerable stocks of ammunition and illicit drugs seized. That's the outcome of a military operation that spanned several days over the past current days. Ines Ondo-Ambala in Boya.
A joint military operation on Monday, October 17 in Mukunda village in Boya town, southwest region, has led to the discovery of some weapons suspected of being used in fueling the ongoing socio-political unrest in the two English-speaking regions of Cameroon. 52 arms, 50 ammunition, 8 motor batteries, 2 rangers, 1 army bag, 3 cameras, and 19 mobile phones were discovered in a mechanic garage in a residence in Boya town. During the search, an important pack of tramadol, illicit substance, and cables were discovered in another house of the same neighborhood.
The scheme of our normal operation, we took some suspects that are carrying traditional weapons, and they will be presented to the collegium so that the normal procedure concerning the judiciary way should be carried on.
It is alleged that the most traditional guns found in the first residence were owned by the grandfather who used it for hunting, and the suspects are now using these guns for malicious gain.
2 months were came here. I never even know whether they open and safe. So they scat, they broke the this, and they broke ties and so. And then they start moving. They don't carry and so they reach. Then I was them making it off for me. Say, Mom, people probably they do hunting. I said, no, me to pick where they go find them before I can know more of that one. Car all they don't die na woman that.
The over 14 suspects who fell into the dragnet of military, gendarme, and police are presently gnashing their teeth behind bars as investigations continue.
Thanks, Ines. We now head off to another aspect, and you would need to know that human rights defenders worldwide are defining the death penalty as not only cruel, but also inhumane. In Cameroon, there are mounting calls for its abolition via the putting in place of advocacy instruments. Here's Chia Hyacinth in Yaoundé with a report.
According to the National Human Rights Commission, Cameroon recorded more than 200 deaths of raw prisoners by the end of 2021. And though Cameroon has had a de facto moratorium on death penalty executions since 1997, competent courts continue issuing death sentences, and conditions of detention on death row are particularly difficult in different units. A cruel treatment the Human Rights Commission wants to be abolished. Reason for this workshop this October 18 in Yaoundé.
We want to be able to fight for the complete abolition. It does exist in our constitution, but the international trend is for this measure to be completely abolished.
Participants drilled on the practical guides of the advocacy carefully drafted by human rights institutions.
The guide has been prepared by the ECPM with inputs from various human rights organizations around the world. And this guide is meant to help us in our strategies for the continuous leadings for the abolition of the capital punishment around the world.
The workshop will also enable the adoption of a roadmap outlining the actions to be implemented to completely put an end to death penalty in Cameroon.
Thanks, Hyacinth Chia. Now let's come back to Douala in the country's littoral region, where authorities in the Vuri division have launched a crackdown campaign to recover taxes from occupants of temporarily leased parcels of land along the roads. And these host businesses including shops and garages. Gladys Ambo says in the following report that the operation has sparked fears of the unknown from occupants of such spaces. Here's her commentary.
Sealed for the non-payment of land tax, these garages and motor spare parts shops occupying roadsides in the Dibamba littoral region have been operating without paying taxes. After several notifications, the Debt Recovery Commission, led by Vuri Senior Divisional Officer, is out to recover taxes.
When you occupy the roads, you have to pay the fines. You can go to the treasury to pay your fines when you occupy the roads, the public domain.
The administrative authority insists the operation is part of efforts to attain objectives for 2022 and urge taxpayers to pay the property tax to avoid sanctions.
The sanction is that if you don't pay, you have to close your establishment, and because they have a citizen spirit to come to pay freely their fines.
The operation continues to other neighborhoods in Douala, where garages and other shops have been constructed anarchically by the roadsides and without authorizations.
Now, statistics from the Ministry of Justice indicate that over 80% of all court cases registered in courthouses across Cameroon are related to land title issues, and land ownership disputes have over the years become a major threat to social cohesion. In bids to address the situation, lawyers and common interest defense groups met in Douala and are proposing solutions. Here's Sherifa Saleh.
Increasingly, Cameroonians are complaining with regards to the difficulties they encounter in the process of obtaining documents entitling them to the ownership of parcels of land. In the course of a meeting with lawyers in Douala, they mention the assorted challenges they encounter.
The land tenure is responsible for the production of the land titles because they are responsible for updating all the technical files, and according to the law, when the technical file is registered in the data, all the other files which come later are rejected.
According to them, the administration has put in place legal mechanisms to ensure denunciation of fraudulent practices that lead to corruption in the sector. Before acquiring a piece of land, aspirants should be sure of possession of all the requirements.
Before you want to acquire a piece of land, you must meet all the necessary conditions in order to guarantee your possession and to avoid any form of misunderstanding. You must be extremely careful.
Meeting under the canopy of the umbrella organization Oui Mondial, the legal experts vow their intention is to correct the errors of the present and the past, errors which they say generally victimize the financial weak persons in society.
Now, in recent days, there's been an upsurge in deviant behavior across school campuses in Cameroon. And it's on that note that educators have been brainstorming to come up with the best practical solutions. One of such conclaves held in Douala recently, and the experts are proposing lodging material online that can help to guide and counsel students. Here's a report from D. Morin.
In the last 10 years, the number of schools have increased in Cameroon while the student population keeps growing, but the student counselor ratio remains low.
The student counselor ratio is 250 or 300
to a counselor. But you still have some schools that they don't have sufficient counselors.
The focus of the 20th edition of the National Guidance Counseling Day, commemorated October 18, is on the introduction of digitalization of guidance and counseling services.
With the National Counseling Day, we can have a number that is at the disposal of parents and students to help them open their self, open their mind to those who can listen to them.
We have realized that there are so many people who don't have access to counseling services. We even have private schools, we even have people in the suburbs. It's true that they might not even have the telephones, but when they will have the opportunity to have one, they can get into the site and then they'll be able to benefit from the services.
This approach will no longer work only with the students, but the parents are also involved.
Ceremony to commemorate the day in Douala, under the chair of the regional delegate for secondary education, counselors and parents were drilled on the important role played by guidance counselors in orientation of children in their academic pursuits.
Now, women call them hot flashes. It is a sudden flare of waves of heat experienced by women in the 45/55 years age bracket on the occasion of the World Menopause Day this October 18. Our reporter in Yaoundé, Beatrice Ngamo, has been finding out how women cope with the condition. Her report.
Whether it creeps on you or you have forewarning, menopause is fact of life.
La ménopause est un état naturel.
And menopause, a stop of monthly periods in women, happens between 45 to 55 years, though early for some. The most common complaints about menopause is hot flashes and accompanying night sweats, a feeling of intense heat not caused by any external source. It lasts about 4 minutes or more and frequency varies.
Corps chauffe à un moment donné, ça chauffe.
These uncomfortable symptoms are approximately a quarter of women in perimenopause. Some women see the flashes as distressing and confusing. Others are not even aware.
Quand c'est arrivé, je me suis dit, bon, tiens, je suis rentrée à la tranche des personnes déjà qui ont grandi et qui vieillissent. Donc, j'ai pris ça naturellement.
Healthy diet, regular exercise, intake of much water, enough sleep, and more important to reduce frequency and impact. Once entering the menopause age bracket, good for women to be on the alert so as to thrive, survive with the life changes.
40 ans, 50 ans, nous les dames, nous devons nous préparer, nous devons également préparer notre corps aux différents changements qu'il aura à subir.
This October the 18th is the World Menopause Day. Awareness on the topic to support options to improve health and well-being of women, important in reducing the stigma attached to it.
Thanks, Ngamo Beatrice. Now let's move on to something else and let's talk authors' rights in Cameroon, because 1 year after the Collective Management Organization for Copyright and Related Rights signed an agreement with the Cameroon Employers Cartel, GCAM, to facilitate payment of royalties to artists, the CMO's Control Mission gets to action. The president of the Control Mission, Theophile Eyango, alongside the board chairs of other copyright associations, are in Douala to finalize modalities that will permit the companies under GCAM to pay royalties to artists so they could henceforth live on their efforts and preempt recurrent tensions. Let's now have a listen to the board chair of the Cameroon Music Authors' Rights Corporation, Ate Bazor, collected for us by Gladys Ambo.
The visit of the new president enabled us to have a working session, very important working session, in which we have adopted that a typical contract that will be signed by almost all the companies, about 400 companies working grouped under GCAM. Copyright corporations will go towards the companies. There will be a chronogram which will enable us to sign contracts, and these contracts will permit those companies to pay a lot of money to authors' rights corporations that will, of course, be able to share out to the artists and enable Cameroonian artists to live from their work. So
And so that was the board chairman of the Cameroon National Musical Arts Corporation, Ate Ngong, popularly known as Ate Bajor. Now let's take you beyond Cameroon and we move over to Senegal in West Africa, where fishermen are not only grumbling, they're also frowning at the government decision to install a gas terminal at a popular fishing port. It is called St. Louis. Here's Chin Stephanie.
The launch of gas production is expected to start next year. As it draws closer, the Secretary General of the Fishing Union braces for the worst as it poses a threat to fishing activities in the area.
La cohabitation n'est pas possible.
Cohabitation is impossible. Once gas extraction begins, it will mean death for St. Louis fishing sector. St. Louis is the capital of fishing. If you take into account the number of boats in St. Louis, the types of fishing found in St. Louis, they exist nowhere else. However, the fishing area is very small. It is practically stuck between the mouth of the river and the border with Mauritania, where there are coast guards who have already killed 19 fishermen because they forbid access to their waters. Seafarers have seen their catch dwindle, saying the area is precisely where most fish is found. The gas project has also drawn criticism from environmental groups. Greenpeace Africa's Ocean Campaign Manager Aliou Ba stressed that exploiting fossil fuel deposits will further exacerbate the climate crisis.
Personne ne peut nier que l'exploitation des ressources.
No one can deny that resource exploitation has and will continue to have impacts on our environment. There will also be social impacts, and when you see the communities that live next to where the resources will be exploited, especially here in Guedda, where there is a community of fishermen, we feel the concerns. We see the contrast between the billions that we are told will come from the extraction of offshore gas and the poverty that you see around you.
Et la pauvreté que vous voyez autour de vous.
Senegal's Energy and Oil Minister Sophie Gladima says they were important enough to radically change the economy and industrial fabric of the nation and thereby its future prospects. The pre-COP27 talks held in Kinshasa at the start of October heard calls for alternative technologies and major financing to sustain a green transition.
And that was it for the 6:15 p.m. edition of the news on Canal International. More news at 1950 Cameroon time with Alain Ghislain Kanga in French. If you missed out on anything this day on Canal International, head off to our social media platforms. Catch you tomorrow for more news and more interesting programs on this channel. Goodbye.